I think that's one of the very important things, is where you look nice for the people that paid their money to see you.
For decades, the bright lights of country music promised picket fence purity, yet every rhinestone flashing across the Grand Ole Opry stage hit a scratch no spotlight could reveal. Publicists peddled barn dance fairy tales, wholesome Sunday smiles, and the myth that each baritone hero walked straight from church pew to chart topper. Meanwhile, in dressing rooms thick with hairspray, stale whiskey, and freshly inked hush-money checks, reputations were traded like used Cadillacs and secrets soaked into soundproof carpet. Today we slide past the velvet ropes, crack open the padlocked touring trunks, and sift through the memorabilia management never wanted fans to see. We're talking overloaded airplanes, sealed lawsuits, missing radio logs, and torched award envelopes, the footnotes scribbled in the margins of platinum records. Some of these stories were whispered in neon-lit bars, others buried beneath stacks of union contracts, but everyone rattles like a backstage door in a storm. Keep your ear to the wall, because when the amps quiet down, the truth still hums through the plywood. By the final chord, you'll never tap your boot to a classic hit quite the same way again. Jim Reeves floated from radios like butter on grits, yet the day his sleek Beechcraft punched through humid Tennessee air, he swapped velvet tone for a mechanical shriek no microphone could capture. Friends warned the freshly licensed pilot that the storm rolling in was rougher than a honky-tonk bouncer, but Reeves bragged he could beat any clock. Stagehands watched him cram amplifiers, rhinestone suits, and a press kit into the cabin, ignoring weight limits and begging speed. Air traffic control never logged a proper clearance, and when the aircraft went missing, label lawyers reached the crash site before some deputies, scooping maps and flight charts into unmarked briefcases. The official report blamed low visibility, but old roadies whisper the real cause was greed outweighing lift. Nashville lit candles, spun tribute specials, and moved on. Yet somewhere in a locked studio closet sits the dented prop cap, a souvenir of silence. Label executives kept radio quiet by flying Reeves's widow to every memorial broadcast, dabbing her grief with sponsorship checks, and instructing DJs to eulogize the storm, never the weight manifest. Old-timers swear if you pry up the studio floorboards, you'll still find splinters of that airplane's wing hidden beneath the planks. Porter Wagoner's high-watt grin could have powered the Opry's marquee, but behind the scenes he juggled casino markers like sizzling skillets. He'd finish a matinee, hop the red-eye to Las Vegas, and lose more at the craps table than his entire backing band earned that tour. By 1980, the boutique label he'd launched to find the next Dolly was hemorrhaging cash, buried under bad distribution deals and IOUs. In the gray dawn, he slipped into a downtown courthouse, filed for bankruptcy in under 10 minutes, and slid back out unseen, rehearsal still hours away. Young hopefuls signed to his imprint arrived later that week to locked offices and disconnected phones, dream demos trapped in silent tape machines. Porter kept smiling for television cameras, sequins catching studio lights that couldn't quite disguise the tremor in his hands whenever dice were mentioned. Down the hall, rookie acts who had signed to Wagoner's imprint found royalty statements replaced by apology letters. Several quit music entirely, convinced the industry was rigged, while Porter paraded new suits on stage. Sequins reflecting camera flashes that couldn't capture the tremor in his hands whenever dice were mentioned. Ray Price strutted through the radio boom with a shuffle beat so smooth it felt inevitable, yet smoke-filled control rooms buzzed with a different rhythm, the rustle of bills beneath the console. Whispers claimed late-night disc jockeys opened brown envelopes slipped through back doors, each stuffed with green strong enough to bump a single into heavy rotation. When Congress dragged broadcasters into Payola hearings, Price's name miraculously stayed off every ledger, but engineers recall frantic midnight phone calls, scrubbing playlists. Decades later, an intern found a battered shoebox of unsent invoices marked consulting, each bearing the scrawl of a program director who once swore under oath he had never seen a dime. The box vanished by sunrise, replaced with a fresh envelope holding nothing but a note: "Let the dead rest." Decades later, studio interns uncovered a battered shoebox of unsent invoices marked "Consulting," each bearing the scrawl of a program director who swore under oath he'd never taken a dime. The box vanished within hours, a fresh manila envelope left in its place holding only a note, "Let the dead rest." Charlie Rich never trusted quiet protest. On the 1975 CMA stage, tuxedo rumpled, whiskey warmth coursing through his veins, he tore open the winner's envelope, glanced at the words John Denver, and thumbed a lighter. The card flared bright, producers shrieked in the control truck, and a million living room jaws dropped. Viewers laughed at a drunken stunt. Confidants swear Rich rehearsed the bit alone, muttering about the popification of country music. The fallout was brutal. Sponsors bailed, radio programmers blacklisted him, and some venues demanded he reenact the Blaze nightly as a novelty gimmick. The irony wasn't lost on the Silver Fox. The system he tried to shame now wanted to sell tickets off the very act that exiled him, a serpent feasting on its own tail. After the Blaze, Rich tried to book club gigs under a pseudonym, but promoters demanded he reenact the stunt nightly. The irony wasn't lost on him. The industry he tried to shame now wanted to sell tickets off the very act that exiled him, like a snake swallowing its tail. Glen Campbell hawked sunset optimism, but his calendar read like a rehab brochure. Capitol Records kept two schedules, one brightly printed for fans, another typed in code for sanitariums. 3 separate times aides loaded Campbell into limousines with blacked-out windows, drove through service entrances, and checked him in under aliases like Kevin Jones. Nurses confiscated guitars to stop late-night serenades, yet one orderly remembers Glenn standing barefoot by a barred window, humming chord progressions on a prescription bag. When discharge papers finally came, executives hustled him straight to a variety show taping, hospital wristband imprint still on his skin beneath the custom jacket. Years later, tabloids screamed addiction, and management acted shocked. Even they had lost count of the clandestine check-ins hiding under platinum plaques. One orderly remembers Campbell standing barefoot by a barred window, humming chord progressions into the sunrise and jotting lyrics on prescription bags. When release papers came, executives whisked him straight to a TV variety show taping, his hospital wristband still imprinting his skin beneath the custom-tailored jacket. Patsy Cline's voice could crack granite, but her marriage was crumbling faster. Letters found in a shoebox reveal she'd rented an apartment in Memphis and drafted divorce papers, planning to leave husband Charlie Dick the week after a benefit concert. Friends say she separated stage gowns from street clothes, her coded sign that she wasn't coming back. Fate intervened when the plane carrying her and 2 fellow stars slammed into a forest. Reporters printed eulogies of domestic bliss, omitting the quiet plan for freedom. A sympathetic paralegal saved those unsigned divorce documents, handing them to her granddaughter with orders to release them when Nashville finally told women's stories honestly, a date still circled in pencil on someone's calendar. A sympathetic paralegal kept the unsigned divorce file, passing it to her granddaughter years later, with instructions to reveal it when Nashville finally told women's stories fairly. The document's existence flickers online every few years before disappearing, as though Patsy's restless spirit keeps pulling the plug until justice feels right. Johnny Cash loved nature except the part he accidentally torched. Popped pills, swigging liquor, he drove a truck into Los Padres scrubland. An exhaust spark kissed dry grass, birthing a wildfire that swallowed 500 acres and 49 protected condors. Rangers fumed. Cash grinned and quipped that buzzards never bought records. The federal suit settled fast. Insurance funds whispered through silence clauses. Promoters feared a boycott, so they printed limited edition wildfire benefit posters, skimming most proceeds for overhead. Later, Cash wrote a verse about ashes and forgiveness. You've heard the song, but the liner notes never mention the condors. Environmentalists threatened a boycott of Cash concerts, but promoters countered by printing limited edition wildfire benefit posters, skimming most proceeds for overhead. Johnny's camp issued a single-sentence apology and rolled on. Later, he penned a verse about ashes and forgiveness. You've heard the song, but the liner notes omit the condors. Tammy Wynette dialed emergency services one chilly night in 1978, breath trembling as she claimed masked men forced her into a Cadillac at gunpoint. Bruised and shaken, she stuck to the tale, yet detectives noted timelines that slipped like a badly tuned string. Hospital staff whispered older contusions hidden beneath new ones, and rumor painted husband-manager George Ritchie as the unseen gunman. No charges landed, the case closed without suspects, and a month later Wynette's single about loyalty rocketed to #1. Tabloids drafted exposés, but ads for her new fragrance funded the same pages, so editors buried doubts in paragraph 5. A retired detective later admitted he'd been told to look busy, solve nothing, orders delivered by a phone call he couldn't trace. Tabloids typeset sensational headlines, yet ads for Wynette's new fragrance funded the same pages, so editors buried the doubts in the 5th paragraph. Years later, a retired detective confessed he had been told to look busy, solve nothing. The order delivered by a phone call he wouldn't trace. Loretta Lynn made motherhood an anthem, yet when she revealed another pregnancy mid-sponsorship cycle, corporate partners panicked. Marketing teams predicted audiences would tag her too domestic for primetime sparkle. Management yanked her from a 30-city tour, citing extreme exhaustion, swapped fresh dates for a greatest hits compilation, and suggested filming promos waist up to hide her bump. Loretta slammed the meeting room door so hard it rattled plaque walls, a coal miner's daughter reminding executives exactly who owned the mic. Fans mailed thousands of letters asking why concerts were canceled. Reply postcards simply read, "Scheduling conflict." The baby arrived healthy. Some ad men never recovered from the bruise to their egos. One sponsor proposed filming Lynn from the waist up, makeup masking any maternal glow, an idea she rejected with a barn door slam that echoed through Music Row. The audio tech recording promos that day kept the reel as a trophy, proof a coal miner's daughter could still outshout a boardroom. George Jones's disappearances were legendary, but one binge nearly ended his story for good. After a week-long spree, he checked into a roadside motel, emptied the minibar, and mixed pills with bargain vodka. Housekeeping found him barely breathing, the label's crisis unit descended, paid the clerk, altered the register, and rushed Jones to a private clinic. A press release blamed stomach flu, and replacement singers rehearsed backup in case the possum never reappeared. When he finally staggered onto a comeback stage, teleprompters flashed not lyrics but reminders: smile, turn, exit. Paramedics waited in the wings with oxygen, and ticket stubs soared, proving tragedy can chart higher than talent. When Jones finally staggered back onto stage, teleprompters displayed not lyrics but reminders: smile, turn, leave. Fans cheered the return without realizing paramedics waited ringside off camera, instructed to intercept if his knees buckled. The single released that night went gold. Profits funneled into yet another silent medical bill. Conway Twitty wore faithful gentleman charm like cologne, masking whispers about a backup singer's sealed paternity suit. Court clerks recall an after-hours hearing, documents stamped confidential before dawn, and a 6-figure payout that vanished quicker than a pedal steel fade. Industry insiders joke Nashville's best genealogy is a flowchart of hush money, and in Conway's case, the rumored child grew up fronting a garage band that covered "Hello, Darlin'" at county bars. Audiences sang along, unaware they might be witnessing a private family reunion every encore, living proof that legacy can echo long after paperwork is locked away. Industry insiders joke that Nashville's best-kept genealogy is a flowchart of hush payments. In Conway's case, the rumored child grew up to front a garage band that covered "Hello, Darlin'" at local bars. Audience none the wiser they might be hearing a family reunion every encore. Hank Williams Sr. distilled agony into art, but the agony often started in antiseptic psychiatric wards buzzing with fluorescence. MGM demanded the public see only the poetic rogue, so when Hank spiraled, they paid doctors to file under aliases and scheduled electroshock sessions at dawn to dodge photographers. An intern's diary once described the lanky singer pleading for painkillers, but that notebook disappeared after corporate lawyers visited. Legend says MGM kept an ambulance idling outside sessions, engine running so long the driver crocheted between calls. Fans heard the heartbreak in his voice. They never saw the hospital wrist marks he powdered before each show. Legend has it MGM kept a standing ambulance outside Hank's studio sessions, engine idling so long the driver crocheted between calls. When locals asked, Publicists said it was just part of the show, as if an emergency vehicle were as ordinary as a pedal steel in the parking lot. Brenda Lee stood just over 5 feet, yet promoters treated her like a wind-up toy they could crank until the springs squealed. International routings ping-ponged her across continents while she was still legally a minor. Musicians remember seeing Brenda asleep atop amplifier cases in airport cargo bays because management booked flights without hotel buffers. When her parents discovered agents forging guardian signatures and pocketing double commissions, they marched into court. The docket entry vanished under seal, but insiders recall a mediation where unpaid royalties changed hands by the shoebox. Brenda left with a new contract, a reputation for grit, and chronic wrist pain from signing every autograph demanded. Touring musicians remember seeing Brenda asleep atop amplifier cases in airport cargo bays because management booked flights without hotel buffers. She'd wake, hit the stage, and shatter ceilings with that powerhouse voice, then sign autographs until her hand cramped. Proof grit sometimes substitutes for a childhood. Marty Robbins split his heart between chart hits and roaring stock car engines, but federal agents cared less about octane and more about mob money rumored to fuel his ventures. In a drab office, they questioned him about investors who shared headshots with notorious crime bosses. Robbins cooperated, then flew to sing at a White House gala where, oddly, the investigative file was reclassified the next morning. Racetrack buddies teased him about singing for Uncle Sam, unaware the lead investigator suddenly held VIP passes to every Grand Prix. Justice, it seems, waved a checkered flag before ever reaching the final lap. Racetrack buddies teased Robbins about singing for Uncle Sam, unaware subpoenas sat unopened in his glove compartment. One mechanic claimed the FBI's chief investigator suddenly got VIP tickets to every Grand Prix, his toddlers photographed on Robbins's hood mid-race. Evidence justice sometimes waves a checkered flag before the finish. Dottie West once twirled in gowns that shimmered like bottled starlight, but by the late 80s she was sleeping in a battered Pontiac between county fair gigs. Bankruptcy court auctioned her Nashville home and even her stage costumes, while press releases chirped about a strategic restructuring. Determined, she joked on stage she'd traded the limo for a hatchback, better gas mileage. But back at the motel, she counted cafe tips to cover new guitar strings. An Opry reunion beckoned, yet fate intervened. Racing to rehearsal, a car crash took the comeback and her life. The industry mourned loudly, ignoring the quiet debt it owed her. As her final tour loomed, Dottie auto-corrected sorrow into humor, introducing songs by joking she'd traded the limo for a hatchback, better on gas. Audiences laughed, unaware she was counting cafe tips to cover string change sets. The car crash ended the joke, but not the punchline industry greed delivered. 15 buried scandals, 15 muffled screams smothered beneath steel guitar and velvet harmony. The pattern gleams as clear as chrome on a tour bus. Whenever reputation threatens revenue, gatekeepers yank the truth's plug and crank up a feel-good chorus to drown the echo. Planes plunge with unanswered questions, envelopes ignite on live television, forests burn, contracts vanish, babies are hidden, and entire legacies teeter on the tightrope of corporate profit. Yet the songs survive, spinning on jukeboxes, carved into heirloom vinyl, streamed through earbuds on quiet midnights. Every chorus you hum was paid for twice, once in studio time and once in secrets. So next time a classic twang hits your speakers, listen past the melody. You might hear the hush money fluttering between the grooves, insisting the truth is never out of tune. Remember, the softer the fiddle, the louder the secret begging to be finally heard by faithful fans.